Grateful to ADRI for inviting me to be present here, Gupta, Ghosh Babu and others. And frankly, I'm very happy to be presiding over the session mobility in the region over time. My name is Shakti Sinha. I'm the director of the Teen Murti of the Nehru Memorial Museum in Rajgir. Because I come from a family of, let's say, migrants. Thanks to 1857, and those of you know the history of Bihar, when the Bengal army was disbanded in 57, well, the Bengali army was largely peopled by people from this part of the world. And the fact that the end of the old Rajas who had their own mobile forces throughout history in recent times is that it led to a massive amount of oversupply of labor and undersupply of land. So my ancestors moved from here to the Darjeeling Hills. And in a very paradoxical way, after 80 years, 60 years, my father came back to Bihar. It was like rediscovering our roots again. So when I saw the speakers, I saw the profile they're doing, I felt really happy to be sitting here to listen to all of them. Patna was a very, is in different ways, but was a very interesting city in the 18th and the 19th century. It is also the city, the trading capital of the 18th century, early 19th century, the center of the spread of what is now the Wahhabi culture. Azimabad was the center of the whole Wahhabi culture. And under pressure from the British, they then moved to Swat and Bunair in what is now the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. So this tremendous mobility of people, of artifacts, of literature, produced a culture of its own, a dynamic culture obviously influenced, but also carried around the world. So when you read some of Naipaul's earlier books, it's in English, but the cadence is completely something that I'm comfortable with. Of course it is in English, but the structure of the sentence tells you that in memory that language remains. So I'll not take more time since we are underground. Our first speaker would be Catherine Servan-Schreiber. She's an anthropologist, specialist in Indian medieval literature, a lot to do with Bhojpuri oral traditions, evolution of printing in this part of the world, published books on Bhojpuri wanting singers, Bhojpuri diaspora across, and for those who have relatives in Mauritius will appreciate that. And therefore I request Catherine to, she's sitting there because if you sit there then she gets the glare of the thing in her eyes. Catherine, you have 15, 16 minutes. The 16th minute is mine, maybe 17. Thank you.
Thank you. So, good morning to everyone, and many thanks to ADRI for ADRI for organizing this conference. Nevertheless, ADRI gives us only 15 minutes, so I have to cut the Islamic dimension of my presentation. I apologize, and I immediately concentrate on mobility in Bihar, wandering singers, peddlers, and circulation of chapbooks. And you all have a bibliography to follow my presentation. So, as the title of our panel suggests, the state of Bihar, more than any other, has shown a great variety of mobility patterns. We can see this either with the famous recruitment places of Bhojpur for the Mughal and British armies, as underlined by Doctoral, or later on with the history of indentured labor in the Indian Ocean. And nothing embodies better this mobile vocation than the picture of the farewell of the Bidesiya to his wife, as can be seen on this popular picture. I was interested in studying a peculiar pattern of mobility since a long time. And my idea was not to restrict my study to people, but to associate the circulation of people with that of text and objects. Therefore, I started a focus on Bihari peddlers, wandering traders, and wandering singers, but not as an isolated factor, and I associated the topic of mobility to the history of book printing in India and the circulation of chapbooks. In this matter, my process is similar to that of two scholars. The first one is Frances Pritchett, with the history of Fort William College publication in her book Marvelous Encounter, where she followed Hindi and Urdu Kissa popular edition. And the other one is A.R. Venkatachalapati, with his fascinating study of songsters at Crossroads and Gujili Bazaar of Madras, Tamil popular publication. But whereas they treat the mobility questions as historians of popular book printing in India, my approach is also that of anthropology. The sources I use are numerous. I want to mention some works that enlightened my process, like the Antiquarian Remains in Bihar by D.R. Patel, or the works of Said Hassan Askari on medieval Bihar and Sufism in Bihar, or the Patna School of Painting of Migrant Archer. Myself, I collect numerous archives, from recording songs to collecting pictures, and I have constituted a unique collection of Bihari chapbooks, which are deposited in the CEIAS Library of Paris. Now, on the basis of these elements, let me say a word of my methodology. Some main directions have guided my study. 1. The identity, story of life, symbol or double profession, and weights of relations of the wandering persons must be carefully noted. 2. Geographical trajectories, halting places, markets and fairs, religious places where they go must be carefully noted. I have endeavored to follow their routes from Allahabad to Kathmandu and Calcutta, from Mirzapur to Viratnagar. So doing, maps of their trajectories were established. 3. I have given a great importance to the printers and dynasties of printers who contribute to the edition and selling of chapbooks. I tried to settle the prosopography of the dynasties of printers. 4. I endeavored to follow the web of merchant communities like Banjaras and their caravan traveling to Bengal towards the east and to the Himalaya Terai towards the north. I also endeavored to follow the web of sellers and small peddlers who are selling chapbooks. And 6. I try also to determine the public who listens to the singers and buy the chapbooks and other books of the peddlers. Most often they are rickshawalas, coolies, boatmen, baniya, momiya, cattle sellers, themselves wandering and moving people listening to moving and wandering singers. While studying these factors, my intention is also to compare the roots of these mobile professions to replace their travels inside a wider economic system and to see the impact of their contribution on the formation of the Bihari identity. From this point of view, we can distinguish several kinds of peddlers, from jewel sellers to drapery sellers. We can include the merchants who traveled with their caravans or only with one animal. And we can also distinguish 5 main kinds of professional wandering singers who perform outside their native villages. The mystic followers of the Shivaite Goraknath band, the mystic followers of Sufi doctrines, the martial and pastoral caste of singers following in the wake of the Rajput like the Ahir and Dusad, the wandering caste of Nat or Nonia singers following in the wake of the mercantile Banya caste and who are linked to trades and caravans. and also the Kebat or Mala singers on the Gangami. With the help of the webmaster Nadia, I have drawn a map of their itineraries and trajectories. During my fieldwork, and while following the wandering singers, I had noticed that all their repertoires had been printed in chapbooks and were sold along the same road that they borrowed. And this led me to a long inquiry into the popular printers of chapbooks, on the chapbook circulations, and on their sale policy. This inquiry has revealed the wide scale of the sector inside Bihar and outside. The most active of the Bhojpuri printers and the oldest is certainly Thakur Prasad of Kachori Gali in Varanasi. He has published all the titles of the epic repertoire, including folk songs, kahani, kissas, and popular dramas. His tiny shop in the narrow lane in the bazaar is always busy with customers. The price of a chapbook varies from 10 to 25 rupees. The print run is usually 1,000 copies for one title. Chapbooks is not only sold at his shop, but also sent through UP, Bihar, Bengal, and Nepal. He has a branch of his bookshop in Calcutta. In Patna, the commercial orientation of the printing press, Narayan & Co., is slightly different. It has specialized in the printing of successful popular songs and film songs together with Gatha. The print run is from 1,000 to 5,000 copies. D. and La has published all the titles of the Bhojpuri song repertoire. He sold 10,000 copies of Gatha and chapbooks and 50,000 of songs chapbooks a year. The chapbooks are diffused to Assam, Delhi, Mumbai, and Nepal. In Calcutta, all the Bengali main printers of the Mahatma Gandhi Road contribute to the printing of the Bihari chapbooks like Loknath Pustakalay or Bholanath Pustakalay Sajdev Prakashan. Their print runs are from 15,000 to 20,000. Now, the Chowpatiya chapbook, as well known, is a small size, cheap, light publication, easily carried and handled. Once printed, chapbooks are sent to numerous places of sale, either by train, lorries, or by special bicycles with hawkers which have equipped a teller platform. The printers have also catalogs to send the chapbooks by mail to the reader. As to the chapbook selling places, they show several forms, from the mere pavement to this teller, like you can see near the Patna station or on the Meda. Now we come to the last agent of this process, the paykar, the peddler, carrying 2 jolly full of chapbooks. He sells them in bazaars, near railway stations, temples, dargahs, and at Melas. He can carry the chapbooks to Assam, Delhi, Nepal, and Bengal. This one is selling Bhojpuri books in the streets of Kathmandu, Nepal. Now, if we want to integrate those mobility practices in a wider context and replace them within the kind of study led by Markovits, Pushpadas, and Subramaniam on society and circulation, mobile people and itinerant culture in South Asia, we can see appearing a first pattern. This pattern stresses the specific construction of a masculine Bihari identity based on a double sense of belonging. Most of the agents of mobility have systematically 2 homes, 2 shops, 2 jobs, 2 wives, and 2 families. One in Bihar, another one in Assam, Bengal, or Nepal, sometimes more far away, like Burma. The second pattern we can bring out is based on the vitality of a book market economy. The trajectory of wandering singers show a great similitude with that of the pay card. The performing places quite often coincide with the selling places of chapbooks, unless it would rather be the circulation of these chapbooks which follows the respective trajectories and halting places of the Bihari wandering singer. As for the last pattern that we can identify, we need a second map. If we see this map, we are struck by the fact that the routes of the peddlers are in the opposite direction of the pattern established by the French historian Laurence Fontaine for Europe. The pattern she describes most often goes from the mountains to the plain. Here it goes from the plains to the mountains or to the sea. And we are also struck to see that the mobility pattern follows other markets involving more hidden factors. One is the selling of cattle and domestic birds, and the other one is based on the places of production and sale of saltpetre, gunpowder, and munitions, which were for a long time specific items for making the wealth of Bihar. And of course, I have not had time to include the opium market on this map. I have to do. As a conclusion, we can arrest the attention on a dynamic of sale which is much more modest and less showy than the famous Marwari merchants or Sindh merchants, but which must not be underestimated. These peddling examples contribute to shape and build such notions as the Batoria, the one who travels, or the Bidesiya, the one who leaves his country, or the Puriya, the one who goes eastward, which are deeply rooted in the Bihari society. Indeed, we must not forget that these wandering groups have had to adapt their journeys to the economic transformation of the region. But because their journeys cover such a vast territory, because the selling of the chapbooks constitute a real market and book economy, and because the texts they circulate are themselves related to roads, wandering, and trades, they embody a way of circulation which is of particular interest for the researcher. Bye. Thank you.
Thank you. On the dot, you didn't need the extra minutes. Our next speaker is Camille Buat, the doctoral student at the Gottingen University. In a master's at the Sciences Po in Paris, Paris, she wrote a dissertation on the migrant working class employed in the Bengal jute industry, with a special focus on the 30s, during a massive amount of industrial conflict. Despite the light. Okay. While she's taking her time, I can just tell you that in Bhojpuri, I always say about migrants. They're going to Calcutta to work in the factories. We are going to Assam to cut paper. So I'm glad that you covered some of it, and I hope Camille will. Now, I'm just time pass, please.
Thank you for ADRI for organizing this, and actually I'm very happy to be here and to be talking about my research with you, but I'm especially happy to be talking right after Catherine, because as you will see, there's a lot of continuity between our two presentations, and one thing that I've actually been using her material, which I have found to be extremely interesting, and also because she shows, well, her presentation was focusing more on the circulation of the chapbooks and the Islamic singers. My presentation will focus on the labor migrant, who would have been one of the main customers buying these chapbooks, and also who also follow the same kind of circulatory routes than his finger. So the larger project is on labor mobility in the 20th century from the Bhojpuri-speaking region, and especially focus on eastern UP and the district of Ghazipur, but also on Baksar in western Bihar. And here in this presentation and in my larger project, one of the questions that I'm trying to raise, which is both methodological and also regarding what can tell us actually about labor circulation and labor migration, is how we can actually weave together different kind of sources. So labor migration has been studied mostly through colonial reports, labor commissions and so on. And the project relies also on this huge and fascinating Bhojpuri folk literature, both folk plays and folk songs, as well as oral history. So I will now start the paper. By the early 20th century, labor migration had become such an entrenched part of life in some areas of northern India that the gazetteer of the district of Ghazipur, published in 1909, observed that since 1901, the wave of migration has assumed extraordinary proportions, so that it is hardly an exaggeration to say that there are few families in the district of which one member at least is not absent in Bengal for the whole or a portion of the year. I further remarked that many people from Ghazipur were also found in Assam, where I quote, most of them are navvies, general laborers, traders and boatmen, almost the whole of the extensive river traffic being in the hands of men from these parts. So not the tea garden as has been studied more, but more of a kind of urban economy. So indeed, as vibrant urban industrial sectors developed throughout eastern India, they drew a considerable portion of laborers from the Bhojpuri region. These were often identified as upcountry migrants, and these workers were employed in a variety of fields, from large-scale factories to service in the police and railways, and the multiple small-scale activities constituted of the urban economy. Taking a different perspective, I collected all basically looked at life and family trajectories in the district of Nalanda, which is really at the border between the district of Ghazipur and the district of Bhojpur, between UP and Bihar. And as you can see here, and I will be quite brief, but basically the kind of life histories that you have from this area really takes people both to Bengal and to Assam. So I will actually leave the Assam connection on the side, and I will focus on Bengal. And just to take the example of one village, the village of Khatari. So all of the three major caste groups in this village, the Mala, the boatmen, Kumhar, potters, and the Ahir, so the other that Catherine has also mentioned, have some connection with Calcutta. It is difficult to know when it was started because it antedated the birth of anyone in the village. So they would usually trace it back to their uncle or grandfather, but it's really hard to know really how this all started. But so the first, everyone would kind of agree that the first person who had come, or the person who established a connection, was Suhan Chaudhry, so Mala by caste, who launched a business of rivering good transportation in Kolkata. And really by the 50s, 60s, this has become a very flourishing business. And you see that the space of the family is really spread over two locations, with mostly men living in Calcutta, where they lived on their boats, and the rest of the family in the village where they had land that they were cultivating. The second trajectory, that of Siraj Protapati, and I will come back to that later. So Kumar by caste, again by the 50s, 40s, 50s, they had established themselves next to Botanical Garden in Calcutta, where they were mostly involved in making teacups and selling them. And again, you have the same kind of bilocality between the village and the city. For the Yadavs, it's not such a big connection, but you do have some linkage, and especially the case of Sukhdev Yadav, who lived in Calcutta for some years. And he was involved with his brother-in-law in a dairy business in Manikala, but then he was employed in the GPW, Gaskin Williams company in the 50s, but he didn't stay very long and then went back to the village. So you have different stories in other villages. For instance, in one other village, you have a huge connection for Sheikh, so higher caste and only Muslims, with the Bengal police. Another village has Muslim weavers working in the Jubilees, again in Shivpur, Howrah, so really close to the Kumhar. So more recently, there has been a shift in the trajectory. So from the 70s, 80s, you see that the linkage with Calcutta is kind of receding, and the newer, younger generations either have gone back to the village, where they're established themselves as teachers or small-scale entrepreneurs, or they had gone to new destinations, mostly Delhi and Noida, and Gulf countries. So the point here, what is interesting here, is really how these migratory practices can be captured through different sources. And I would like to do it with reference, because time is very short, so with reference to a very specific question, that of the relationship between the village and the city, Desh and Videsh, the home and the world, as can be captured in these sources. Indeed, the idea is to question traditional dichotomies between the village and the city, which are often supposed to be kind of irreconcilable poles of the migrants' move. And I want to agree that circulation really created a space of its own, because the constant coming and going of men contributed to link up geographically distant spatial units. As Catherine had said, they had 2 homes, 2 jobs, 2 wives, and so on. There has been a great deal of stability to these migratory regimes and their spatial setup, and it's something that comes up very strongly in the oral history, because the connection established really was reproduced from one generation to the next until fairly recently. But on the other hand, the link would also always be severed, and at the individual level, distance also meant the fear or the risk of rupture, so that the absent husband would just actually disappear. So the paper will try to explore how different kind of material kind of help us think in different ways actually to this spatial setup and connection. What I want to stress is that because our presentation is very short, there are a lot of contextualization that will not come up, and an important point is that these different materials are produced differently as well. So the colonial report, the oral history, and the Bhojpuri folklore all have their own temporality. So thanks to Catherine, we have a longer history of the folklore, but it's something to keep in mind, which I won't necessarily will always be able to do very carefully in the rest of the talk. So I will be quite brief on the colonial sources because they are much more well known, but basically most of the sources produced both by the colonial state and by the employers, and it really focuses mostly on large-scale industries, not only small-scale urban activities. They would describe these upcountry migrants are really as temporary presence in the city and stress their link with the countryside. And the link with the countryside really comes in usually as a way for both the government of Bengal and the employers to kind of explain why they don't have or can't provide any welfare measure, especially when the worker isn't productive anymore, so in times of sickness and after retirement. So just to give you one quote from a letter, the letter written by the Bengal government to the Royal Commission on Labour in 1931, the chief guarantee against old age and premature retirement lies in the land connection of the worker. So long as he does not lose his name on his ancestral home or small property, there is not the same need for his making provision for old age as there is for workers in the West. So in this, really very strongly what comes up of this, in this kind of source is that this linkage between the city and the village is really framed as a linkage between the core, the industrial urban center, and its hinterland, from where they will draw labor and on which they would actually devolve the responsibility for reproducing labor. So in during childhood and during retirement and during sickness and so on. The next point, sorry. Okay, this will come later, sorry. The next kind of body of sources I'm looking at is oral history. And oral history frames this connection between the village and the city in a very different way. And again, this needs a lot of contextualization, but of course the way people will talk about their own life trajectory is linked to their own location. And here I need to stress that I am talking here about people that came back to the village. So I was talking with elderly people that had worked for most of their life in Calcutta and then came back and were explaining their story. It also, I talked to them at a time where the connection with Calcutta is kind of receding. So it's remembered as this kind of glorious past. Calcutta was often compared to this golden bird, Sonekitiria, but that hasn't, so it's remembered with kind of melancholy because this has receded more in the last 20, 30 years. People usually actually would structure their story in terms of succession from grandfather to father to son, and the feminine side of the story is very, very much harder to retrieve. And it's something I will actually come back to later. So I just take the example of Siraj Prajapati of village Hagiographic, which I've mentioned already. So now he's in his 80s and he spent most of his life from childhood onward in Calcutta. When he talks about his life story, it's really centered on his uncle, Ram Dayal, whom he explained first went to Assam, worked there for a little while, didn't like it, then went to Calcutta and settled there sometime in the 30s, 40s, and started this whole cup-making business. But as he narrated his family history, Siraj Pranapati really stressed the continuity between the kind of life and occupation he and his family had both in the village and in the city. So the second of three brothers, he emphasized the interchangeability of location and of people, especially between him and his younger brother because they work as a single economic unit. So he would say things like, but we don't know which, so we were two brothers. One brother was working here, one brother was working there. It doesn't matter which one. He would say that every 6 months basically they would just change. His elder brother, who was separate, had the same kind of interchangeability of location. So he was in Calcutta too, and he was here too. Kolkata Mebita, Yahamita. Again, you have this same kind of interchangeability. He also stressed this continuity in terms of occupation. So he would be very stressing the fact that in the village they would be doing this mitidakakam, so earthen work as potters, and in Calcutta they would also do the same work. And actually what is interesting is that it's not entirely true because his own father worked in the jute mill, his uncle worked in the Gottingen factory as well, and also then became shopkeeper, as did his brother. But what he emphasized is really the connection here occupationally and also socially because explaining that the family was all settled in one single lane in Calcutta and also in one single mohalla in the village. So the accent put on continuity is interesting because migration always involved the risk and the fear of rupture. And this is especially obvious in the rich body of folk songs and play that developed around the figure of the Bidesiya, the absent husband, the one that has gone away for work. Indeed, the loneliness of the wife left behind, the fear that the husband would settle in Bengal, build a life there, take a second wife, and possibly be lost forever, form the core lyrical themes of these songs and plays, and point to the fact that continuity, while it tends to be emphasized when collecting life stories in the areas of origin, was not an obvious or natural fact of migration. So I will now move on to this text. Again, there are a lot of methodological questions regarding how to look at these texts, their temporality, and so on. They all build on a very, very long tradition, which should be taken into account when looking at them. But very briefly, just sticking to this idea of space. One thing is that the feeling of there are some extremely nice and beautiful songs actually regarding the fear of absence and rupture and the feeling of loss of the wife, especially when it's expressed in very kind of daily ritual. So for instance, there's this one song collected and published in the 1950s, who will fix my broken house when you will go away to a distant land, or my beloved who will sleep with me on the bed when we will go away to a distant land, or my beloved who will shoe the pan I make. So I'll have to skip through that, but focusing on the question of the migrant space, what is interesting in these songs, and again, Catherine mentioned it in a way of talking about these Bihari men, basically, is that there is a very strong gendering of space. So the space of the woman is really associated with the home, the familiar, the inside, immobility and rootedness, while the male are associated with the outside and an ever extendable and unknown world of mobility and autonomy. So I'll just take the example of Bihari Thakur's play Bidesiya, because this is, again, because it brings that in, especially, how do you do that? Okay, so just the Bidesiya was composed and performed for the first time in the 1930s, and it has been extremely popular ever since until this day. And so basically the story is that a young man, so Bidesiya, leaves his wife, Pyari Sundari, to go to Calcutta. He promises he will go back very quickly, but he does not. Settles there with another woman and completely forgets about her, and most of the play really focuses on Pyari Sundari as she's waiting for her husband. So really what you have coming up in the play is constantly this kind of competition between the woman who's inside and the husband who's out. It comes in many courses. We will go to a foreign land and I will stay at home alone. Comes back again and again and as they continue to the play.
तुम अपना जगह में छोड़ो ना कुर्सी लगाए चाहे नहीं लगा तुम कहाँ जाओगे पीछे
making him stay in the he wants to go out to cross the door. He replies to her, when the woman takes care of everything in the house, what will a man do if he stays inside the house? Let him go. What is interesting is also we have this strong emphasis on vision and sight. because what really comes out is what both the man and the woman want to see and can see is completely different. So for Bidesiya, and again he comes back again and again, he asks to Kashshaf, let me go and see the world, I want to go and see Calcutta. But when Kashshaf is waiting for him, there is this kind of same thing with vision of saying, I want to have a darshan of you, so I want, when will you give me the sight of you? And she keeps looking at the road from where he should be coming. So here you really have kind of an emphasis on the difference, so this kind of very gender space that both would belong to. But what I want to do, and this is the last slide, is that the problem is also, so Bidesiya, for instance, is something the play that has become very established, and it has many versions, but there's also a very official version by the Bihar Parishad. But you have other texts as well. And this is one taken from one of Shakti's chapbooks, which is extremely interesting. So I will just read you the song. I mean, it's part of it, it's not the whole of it. But so the first part of the song describes Calcutta. So starting with, between Calcutta and Howrah, on the Howrah Bridge, flows the river Hagiographic. You hear, oh my beloved. There's a museum in Karampara, the zoo in Alipur, people talk about it a lot. Do you hear, oh my beloved? And then she's, and this is a really interesting part. Since I have come to my sasural, I long to see it. Wanted to satisfy my desire, oh God, do you hear, oh my beloved? In my Maike, I had heard that my beloved was a Calcutta, that he was working in the police, do you hear, oh my beloved? And here what is interesting is that you have the two spaces of the woman, the Maike and the sasural, so her nature home and the home in which she marries. But then, here the wife also wants to see the world, wants to see Calcutta, wants to see Bidesh. And it's really different from what you have in Bidesiya or other kind of texts. So one thing is that I actually raised the question of how specific is this text, how specific are the other ones, and this kind of heterogeneity within the tradition is something that we really have to take into account. And also the fact that women were mobile. So coming back to also the long history, it's not because they don't talk about, they mostly talk about their grandfather and father and so on, but it doesn't mean that women were moving. At least they were moving with their husbands, especially when the family is settled there. But you have other kinds of mobility, so this is something that maybe can also just moving to visit or moving for medical treatment and so on. So this other kind of mobility has to also be taken into account. So at the conclusion, the main point was to kind of say that space is linked to the constant coming and going of people, of men, but also women and so on. But the connection comes up in very different ways in different sources. And the question is what happens when you bring together these kind of sources? And one thing is that there are really, the point is not to say that one is more right than the other, one is closer to reality. Really, they obscure each of them obscure some things and each of them reveal something. And bringing them together really allows you to kind of look at the tension that you can have. So rupture and continuity would obviously be a main one. The oral narrative emphasizing continuity, while the folklore would more look at the rupture. Same goes with the role of women, who are broadly invisible in some sources, in most sources actually, but you can also kind of find them in different ways. And also stressing the kind of heterogeneity of this material. So again, I presented one life narrative. You have many others, and they will actually frame this connection in different ways, depending on the kind of trajectory that people have. So again, one always tends to kind of homogenize even the sources that one looks at. But one should also always really look very closely at the text and the narrative, especially for oral history, and for this kind of folklore, because this is also where you will see cracks and tensions and things that don't actually, alternative perspective, and things that don't actually match the more general and accepted idea. Thank you.
We're now moving from the 19th to the 20th century, moving back century. Our next speaker, Ghani, who is an assistant professor at Nalanda. He works on Islam in South Asia and the pre-modern age, Indian institutions, practices the networks. So he'll be speaking on the Eastern Corridor, movement and mobility in medieval Bihar.
I thank the chair for the kind introduction, and also I take the opportunity to thank ADRI for inviting me to the conference and allowing me to share some of my ideas related to movement and mobility in medieval Bihar. I'll start straight away for paucity of time. The history of medieval Bihar prior to its final subjugation by the sultans of Delhi is difficult to reconstruct due to the lack of any reliable contemporary accounts on the period of transition. While it is assumed that Muslim presence in this region dated prior to the arrival of the Turks, there is little substantial evidence apart from what can be discerned from some of the Sufi literatures started from the 14th century. The region of South Bihar came under the authority of Muslim rulers from the late 12th century. Even before the formal integration of this region under Muslim arms in 1180, evidences suggest Turkish raids in South Bihar from the 12th century onwards. Copperplate inscriptions refer to attacks called the Turush-Danda, collected by the local rulers from peasants. This would point us to believe or argue towards the idea of a protection money offered by local rulers to ward off repeated Turkish raids or a special form of tax extracted to maintain a standing army. Hagiographical accounts record the presence of Sufi masters in this region from the pre-Turkish days. Particularly, I pick up the site of Maner in this context, where Sufi networks originating from this small town not only spread across medieval Bihar but the whole of eastern India. Maner lies at a distance of around 30 kilometers, or an hour's drive from where we are right now. The region had a continuous history of being the primary center for Sufi activities from the 13th century onwards, when certain Sheikh Kamaluddin Yahya began to operate from the center. He was succeeded by his son, his more famous successor, Sheikh Sharafuddin, whose shrine at Bihar Sharif is a leading Sufi center. It is only from the 14th century that accounts start referring to the movement of Turks either as part of an army or as traders and scholars through this region. This becomes steadier with the establishment of the smaller ruling houses in the vicinity, like that of Jaunpur under Malik Sarwar, and the capital city of Lucknowti in Bengal under Ali Mardan Khilji. Whenever the sultans of Delhi, like the Lodhis under Sikandar Lodhi, would campaign in eastern India, their visit to the important centers of political and Sufi activity in Bihar would be recorded meticulously, to the extent that Sikandar Lodhi's campaigns in this region against the sultans of Bengal in the late 15th century demarcated the frontiers of this area at Munger. When the Mughals established their authority in North India, defeating the house of the Lodhis in the early 16th century, almost every emperor who campaigned in the eastern regions traveled through Bihar. In 1529, Babur visited Maner during his campaigns in Ara. In the Baburnama, Babur wrote, and I quote, "On arriving at the banks of the Son River, masses of trees could be seen downstream. Maner is there," they said, "where the tomb is of Sheikh Yahya, the father of Sheikh Sharafuddin. It being so close, I crossed the Son River, traversed to the Maniar orchards, made a circuit of the tomb and the establishment, returned to the Son bank, made my ablutions, went through the midday prayers before time, and made for the camp." Close quotes. With the rise of the Afghans in Bengal and Bihar of the 16th century, Mughal army was drawn to this region more frequently than before. Before being pushed into exile, Humayun campaigned here in 1539 while fighting his strongest enemy, Sher Shah Suri. Many decades later, his son Akbar would return to Bihar during the siege of the fort in Patna in 1570s. His celebrated general Raja Man Singh would be a more frequent visitor to this region, fighting the last vestiges of Afghan authority in this region around Rohtas Garh. Man Singh stayed at Rohtas on many occasions and carried out his campaigns into Bengal, advancing through the regions of Rajgir. Coming back to Maner, Sheikh Yahya established himself in the region where his contemporaries like Sheikh Bahauddin Zakaria would establish the Suravadis in Multan in Punjab. The Sufis of Maner trained themselves under numerous Suravadi masters all over the 14th century, and it was only when Sheikh Sharafuddin would train himself under the Firdausis in Delhi that one branch of the Maneri Sufis got affiliated with the Firdausiya order, both in the same family. Being on the eastern part of the subcontinent, Sheikh Yahya could maintain a more regular contact with the Sufi saints in Bengal, the most eminent of them being Sheikh Taqiyuddin of Dinajpur and Sheikh Abu Tawama of Sonargaon, both in present-day Bangladesh. They would pay visits to each other's establishments, and so would their disciples move across this region. It was during one such visit made by Maulana Abu Tawama that Sharafuddin the son of Sheikh Yahya, decided to accompany the Sufi master back to his center in Sonargaon. Sharfuddin stayed there in Sonargaon close to 3 decades, training himself under the master in Bengal. He married his daughter and set up his family there, but all this failed to complete his quest for more spiritual knowledge. He set off from Sonargaon after his residence there for over 3 decades. With a sense of incompleteness in his spiritual training, Sharfuddin returned to Maner, where his father had already passed away. His elder brother had succeeded him to the seat, and he was advised to travel to Delhi to seek further training. Sharfuddin set out from Maner again and landed at the doors of Delhi's most famous Sufi master, Sheikh Nizamuddin. Unfortunately, it was on Nizamuddin's refusal that Sharfuddin set out to look for an alternate master who could complete his spiritual quest. He met Sheikh Najibuddin Firdausi and thus began a career of being trained under the Firdausiya saints for a long period in Delhi. After this training was over, he returned to the region of Ara, where he spent long time in meditations before moving on to the seat of his father, where again he was refused successorship, and he moved finally to the center in Rajgir, where he spent the rest of his life. During his stay in Rajgir, Sheikh Sharfuddin would frequently visit Bihar Sharif, the most important center of political and administrative activity, particularly for his Friday prayers. By now, the place had become a capital city located on the main route towards Bengal. With advancing age making it difficult for the Sufi saint to undertake these Friday trips quite frequently, local residents in Bihar Sharif requested him to stay back, and for that purpose arranged a modest accommodation for him. When the Delhi Sultan Mahmud bin Tughlaq came to know about the saint's residence in Bihar Sharif, he ordered the provincial governor to build a more decent establishment for him, and for the maintenance, the Pargana of Rajgir was allocated as a jagir. The Sheikh accepted the gifts hesitatingly, but returned those immediately when the Sultan Firoz Shah visited his establishment to seek blessings on the way to his campaign in Bengal. Briefly, I will look into the works of Sharfuddin. Sheikh Sharfuddin left behind a significant corpus of works ranging from commentaries on important Sufi texts to letters and records of his sermons and conversations. Of the large corpus of works, only 30 have come down to us, which were written either during the 5 decades of his life or earlier. His commentaries on Sufi texts include the classical ones written between the 10th and the 13th century, not only in South Asia, but all over the Iranian and the Persian world, as well as the ones produced in these eastern regions. His famous collection of the 100 letters, called the Maktubat-e-Sadi, deals with mystical doctrines and the basic principles of Islam. These letters were addressed to a certain Qazi Shamsuddin, the governor of Chausa in western Bihar. The governor, due to his official responsibilities, could never make it to Bihar Sharif, and hence sought spiritual guidance through these letters. Some of these letters were also addressed to the sultans of Delhi, like Muhammad bin Tughlaq and Firoz Tughlaq, as well as nobles of neighboring provinces. The significance of these letters remains in their acceptance by a large cross-section of people over centuries as an unrivaled introduction into the path of Islamic spirituality through the experiences of a scholar Sufi. Abul Fazl recorded that these letters were regularly read out to Emperor Akbar, most probably as part of his religious discussions at the Ibadat Khana. A personal copy of these letters were made for Emperor Aurangzeb, who, in spite of his orthodox Sunni position, referred to the advices of the Sufi master from Bihar. A renowned 17th century revivalist from the Naqshbandi order, Sheikh Abdul Hindi, often referred to this set of letters in his own works and collections. The famous biographer and the scholar of the Hadith tradition, Abdul Haq Muhaddis Dehlavi, also from Delhi, made copious references to these letters in his monumental work on the Sufi biographical tradition. In spite of originating from a master of a lesser-known Firdausiya order, these letters and other writings of Sheikh Sharfuddin were regularly read and taught by different Sufi orders in medieval India. A more esoteric work of the same master is his collection of 28 letters addressed to his closest disciple, Muzaffar Shams Balkhi. And going by the surname Balkhi, we can assume that he was a disciple who came down from outside India to took training with Chairperson and returned back in some time. These letters contain detailed explanation and interpretation of deep spiritual issues which were meant to be read only by Balkhi alone. Among all his disciples, Sheikh Sharifuddin considered Balkhi to be his most worthy, fit to be trained in the deeper secrets of Islamic spiritual tradition. However, when Muzaffar Shams Balkhi returned to his native place and continued his connections with the Sheikh, he was trained through these letters that explain many of the complicated doctrines related to the Sufi path. It would be natural that Sufis of an advanced spiritual stage would refrain from making their spiritual teachings and their practices open to public. Muzaffar Balkhi too strongly instructed one of his disciples, I quote, not to show his letters on any account to others, unquote. Taking example from his own training under the master in Bihar, Balkhi would remark, I quote, I too did not bring out any of the letters of my Sheikh. You will cause annoyance to me if anyone sees my letters, since volatile and conventional people will not comprehend the discourses of this poor man, unquote. All the letters of Sheikh Sharifuddin written to Balkhi were buried with the latter as per his instruction, and only a handful of 28 survived to this day. Many Sufis of Bihar, particularly saints like Sheikh Sharifuddin, show a thorough acquaintance with the works and ideologies of Sufi masters, not only in India but the larger Islamic world. In his works, we find copious references from the works of his predecessors all across the Persian tradition, but also celebrated masters from this region itself. I will skip through some of them. Sufis of Bihar, irrespective of their spiritual affiliations, also had strong connections with their contemporaries and counterparts in Jaunpur. Sufi saints of this order regularly trained under the Jaunpur Sufis, and they would return to their native places in Bihar all over in north and south to further their training and preaching. Sufis of Bihar, on account of their training on various important Sufi centers across eastern India, manifested from time to time a great originality of spiritual thought. While engaging with the works of the Persian and Central Asian masters, Sufis of this region exhibited a remarkable sharpness of the intellect combined with a deep training in the mystical traditions. Many of them possessed a great balance of mind, sobriety of judgment, and deep insight combined with a sincerity in the spiritual path. They could combine training with trends of scholarship supported by a breadth of knowledge which exhibited itself in some of the works mentioned above by sheikhs like Sheikh Sharifuddin. Okay, I'll conclude. Therefore, the region of Bengal and Bihar in the pre-modern period witnessed trends of movement that not only concern armies and scholars passing by this region, but also a group of mystics and Sufis of various orders who would trace their origins not only to North India, but in many instances beyond the geographical boundaries of South Asia itself. Currents of religion, culture, intellectual traditions were active in this region, though we may not be able to identify them at all times for a lack of reliable sources. Whatever evidence have come down to us point towards the fact that this region of Bihar and also the neighboring region of Bengal attracted various kinds of people, most importantly Sufis and scholars, who arrived in this region with various agendas, contributing nonetheless to the great amount of activity in the easternmost territories of the Indian subcontinent. Thanks.
Thank you, Kashshaf. And as we all know, the most famous Balkhi Sufi, Nalanda, Jalaluddin Rumi. And moving on from there to, again, more recent times, in a very unusual paper by Sraman Mukherjee, also at the Nalanda University. Sraman is an expert on politics of heritage in colonial and Ghani post-colonial South Asia. A lot of work on Buddhist sites, relics. And this time he's talking on Jain Pandit from the south, visiting the Jain sites of Bihar in recent times. Over to you.
Thank you.
The time starts now.
Okay, thank you, Professor Sinha, for this very generous introduction, and I'd also like to thank the organizers of this conference, ADRI and Dr. Shaibalgupta, for inviting me and providing me the platform to present my work in progress. I must also confess, and can you hear me without the microphone, because I'll then talk without the microphone, it's not really acting to the level. Okay,
it's
so I must also confess.
It's better with the microphone.
It is better with the microphone? Okay. Okay, so I must also confess that I am primarily a historian of visual representation and material culture by training. I read images and objects. I started by reading literary texts, a practice that I have given up now for some time, and I'm returning to this and find myself quite ill-equipped to read literary texts in the same way I can read images or objects as texts. So I am falling short on that. Essentially what I'm doing is to go back to a part of my doctoral thesis which looked at the formation of regional and provincial identities in late 19th, early 20th century Bihar and Orissa primarily through practices of archaeology and museums and through practices of antiquarian archaeological cartographic surveys. What I look at today is essentially a text that survives as a fragmented text only in translation. It's a text of a Pandit, Jain Pandit, who traveled from Calcutta to Gaya and Parsanatha in the early decades of the 19th century on a personal pilgrimage. In 1819, shortly after the abrupt termination of Francis Buchanan Hamilton's services as the statistical surveyor of Bengal Presidency, Colonel Colin Mackenzie, the famous surveyor and traveling antiquarian of the Madras Presidency, was transferred to Bengal as the Surveyor General. As part of his old entourage from the Madras service, Mackenzie took with him to Bengal a retinue of native assistants, among which there was this Jain Pandit of southern India. In 1820, this Pandit remains anonymous, he remains completely unnamed all through the translation. So in 1820, this Pandit travels from Calcutta to Gaya and Parsanatha on a pilgrimage and maintains a journal of his travels. On his return to Calcutta, the pilgrimage journal was partly translated into English and published in the Oriental Magazine and Calcutta Review in 1823. After a gap of about 80 years, it was reprinted in Indian Antiquary as extracts from the journal of Colin Mackenzie's Pandit of his route from Calcutta to Gaya in 1820, with editorial notes by James Burgess. For the colonial surveyors and antiquarians, these journals stood out as the first published, and I quote, native account of antiquities of colonial Bihar, and especially for its description of, I quote again, Jaina monuments by a member of the sect. So it stood out for some kind of an insider account. So what I try to do in the brief time that is there for me is to retrace the pilgrimage route of this Pandit to locate his emerging Jain cartography of Bihar between different trajectories of pilgrimage travels and colonial modern practices of survey, surveillance, and mapping. So he starts out from Calcutta in November 1820 and travels through Madhuban, Palaganj, Vaidyanatpur, Bhagalpur, Champar, Munger. In all these sites, the Pandit recorded the traces of Jain antiquities, temples, images, etc., along with ongoing Jain and Hindu pilgrimage practices. Towards the close of 1821, the Pandit proceeds to the city of Bihar, Bihar Sharif. Approaching the city, he finds the city laden with what he calls Mohammedan monuments, and like Buchanan's journal before him, I mean, that's the journal I'm placing the Pandit's journal in relation to, he finds the local population completely ignorant of the Buddhist identities of sculptures or images, and either these are subjected to Hindu Brahminical worship as Mahadeva, or they are completely recycled in the building of the new buildings itself. The town itself was not predominantly Jain, and the Pandit passes over the town very quickly, except to make a very significant entry. He renames the town Vishakhapur and says that it was the name of the town when it was under the Jain ruler Vishaka Raja. and have been the site of several Jain miracles. One of the reasons I trace this selective renaming of sites, which appear time and again in the Jain Pilgrim's Journal, is that it starts with Buchanan Hamilton's journal and goes well on to inform how archaeological surveys would later pick up in selecting configuration renaming of sites as either Buddhist or Hindu, but mostly as predominantly pre-Islamic. I mean, the trend is to look at what is quintessentially Indic as pre-Islamic in this writings. From Bihar Sharif, the Pandit travels to Pawapuri, which is the site of Jain antiquities, the great temple, the towering Vimana, the halls, the sculpted impressions of the foot of Jain ascetic Vardhamana Swami, which is dovetailed with account of ongoing Jain pilgrimage practices. After a 2-day halt at Pawapuri, the Pandit proceeds to Rajgir. Near the ruins,
because of it, you would foresee the fact that Sharfuddin would not be able to complete his spiritual training under him because he would die soon. And Nizamuddin did die a year after this meeting takes place. So, I mean, it is somewhat based on also historical evidences, but also the kind of politics which goes on of claiming superiority between these various orders spread across western, northern, and eastern India that stretches the concept of the Vilayat from a spiritual and a spatial territory also to like to believe into an intellectual exercise. Their writings were read around certain incidents and the ideas of a spiritual strengthening of one's position in his particular territory vis-a-vis other saints or other spiritual orders. So, Surabati Sharfuddin against his brother, or Bidesiya Sharfuddin against Nizamuddin. So these are complex threads which connect different kinds of Sufis, but it also bring up the complexity and speaks out for us more three areas. On the question which on the ideas of Bihari or a kind of a kind of non-Sufi identity. Records would not mention a particular kind of a Bihari identity for Sharfuddin. I think the idea of Bihari would come much later from the period which we are talking about in 14th, 15th century, because this region would constantly undergo changes in the dimension, not only in the spatial dimension, but also the different kinds of cultural and intellectual outflows that would happen, particularly within the larger Islamic sphere of cultural society. What comes up, though, is the fact that how these Sufi orders or these isolated masters would operate would be to a large extent reflected from their interactions with other major orders, either in their neighboring regions like Bengal or Jaunpur, or in regions like Delhi. And their ideas of identity would get carved out vis-a-vis these interactions that they would have. So, I mean, you can see this switch happening from one order to the other very smoothly, which is very apparently smoothly, but it's not at all smoothly, because there are undercurrents of competition, spiritual competitiveness, and of politics that goes on. And this idea of being a Bihari Sufi, I think, come on much later. But first, this region perhaps would get identified as Bihar, and then residents of the past histories would be incorporated sometimes forcefully into the idea of being a Bihari.
Sorry, I just have to stand up the podium. I can't be able to sit just read otherwise I'm just sitting behind. Sorry. Thank you, Mridu, for that. I'll begin with Mridu's question and then come to Dr. Chaudhary. Mridu, for the brilliant question.
That's just a quick minute. Yeah. I'm in order to wind up.
Okay, sure. So that kind of sums up what exactly my first chapter is. Who is the insider and who is the outsider in talking about early 19th century Bihar? And I would say that the Jain Pandit writing in a language which is not English is as much an outsider as Buchanan Hamilton is, as Cunningham is, whereas William Franklin or Alexander Myrick broadly, essentially district level officers, collectors, settled for most of their lives in district level towns, writing about regional tracts are the earliest of the insider accounts, so to say, in a way, coming out of the 19th century Bihar. So for me, the idea of what is the native, what is insider knowledge is really that relative context, something which is deeply contextual, which can be only in relation to something else. For Dr. Chaudhary, I begin with the second question, and I mean, think of the early 1820s. He probably does not. He does not have access. No one has access to Buchanan's tracts at that point. These are journals which were lying up in Calcutta. After his abrupt termination of services, they transferred to the India office in Leadenhall. Montgomery Martin's Eastern India is yet to come out. It has not come out. So the earliest publication of Buchanan's journal into some sort of a report has not happened, and no one has access to it other than Montgomery Martin, who misappropriates it for the very first time. Jackson's reprinting happens much later out of the Bihar and Orissa Research Society. So, but the point is that he has the training in the kind of colonial survey mechanism and establishment, which is Buchanan's context, which is also the context of Colin Mackenzie. Whether or not he knows his Buddhist antiquities, I think he does. He does it in the same way Buchanan knows his antiquities are Buddhist. How does Buchanan know? He does not have his Zhuangzang's UG. What he has is a prior experience of encountering Buddhist antiquities at the court of Awa, Inwa, when he is in Burma. And it is that prior experience of coming across antiquities which would be seen as Buddhist in the south of India during the Mackenzie surveys that he is actually labeling antiquities as Buddhist, distinctly Buddhist and Jain, a kind of knowledge formation that we now have a huge problem with, that kind of tabulated knowledge formation of which is typical of early colonial age. But the Pandit is exactly located in that. And part of it is how does he say, well, yeah, it was originally Chen. I mean, part of it also has to be then located within his priorities, within the cartographic priorities, in which he has to reinscribe every site as Chen. Not only because he is Chen, but also in the context in which he is looking at it. He is looking at it in the context of a person who gets remained anonymous. Thank you.
Fascinating discussion. I think what needs to be a little bit explored further is Rajgir being the center, initial political center, and later the word Bihar. Bihar comes from there. So it was a massive religious center, and then after the structure comes into being and Buddhism collapses, Nalanda has gone down, the growth of Pilgrim Center for Islam, I think, is a natural kind of a success. And we've always seen these continuums in India. You know, it's just not seamless always, obviously sometimes violent, but these continuums have happened. People have adapted to Jain circumstances, and therefore a Jain king can have a Buddhist grandson. So that's not an unusual phenomenon. And both of them fund temples belong to a third party. You know, I think the identity of Bihar obviously is a Mughal, almost a Mughal identity. Ang, Magad, Badika were previous identities. But the Mughals gave the final, early Mughals gave the final shape to the identity of Bihar, and just before. Which is why when a Mughal prince is traveling by boat from Agra to Bengal, after Chunar Act, today boundaries of UP and Bihar, he says, now I've entered the Suba of Bihar. And when he crosses the Rajmahal Hills, he says, now I'm out of the Suba of Bihar. The Suba of Bihar by then had become east. But to go further back and identify would be a historical. Fantastic things on the Bidesiya. And on the whole thing of development of how this printing presses. And Banaras was the largest Bhojpuri city. I mean, the natural attraction, the entire Bhojpur is always Banaras, because it was the only developed city. And here to the English tradition, Aligarh Patna became an English city. So after Banaras is a natural thing for printing presses for the Indian languages. I would think that would be one. But fascinating about these the songs, of course, Gani Thakur is a legend. So as I said, I have many things more to say, but I'll leave it at that. We are already running out of time. Lunch is in the Lumbini room as yesterday, and 3 sharp the next session starts. Thank you very much. Thank you to speakers and thank you.
This was the